Nicodemus here. On this episode, we wanted to discuss what's going on in the world, the unrest that seems to be everywhere. You see what's going on in the UK, in the Middle East. Why do you think that is?
If we start with understanding, I think really one of the beautiful distinctions in A Course in Miracles, there's a section in the text that is the obstacles to peace. And they're very powerful. And I think just talking, I think of the first obstacle to peace when I see what's happening in the world today. Really, obviously we're in 2024. So without going too much into why it's all happening and all of that, I mean, there's the world's been like this pretty much since human beings, almost since time really began. If you think about it, like there's always this conflict. In any given moment, there's people expressing love and people in the dark of despair and attacking and at war. And the first obstacle to peace, the Course says, is that when you have peace, you want to get rid of it. And that's pretty powerful when you think about it. Like we could all see this in our own lives, because if you look at what's happening in the world, the only place to really truly look is within ourselves, because the chaos that we see out there is reflective of the picture that we have within ourselves. And we all have the war within. That's why there's a part in the Course that's called a war against yourself. And that war against yourself plays out on the world and all the greed and all the endless conflict. And, the Course says the only way to win the war is to walk off the battlefield. Because when you think about it, now when you have things like war tied into financial markets and, markets are tanking in Japan right now, that happened today, on this day. The thing about that, if we look at it from the Course perspective and this understanding that when we have peace, we want to get rid of it. There's something in us that doesn't want peace. And that's hard to accept for a lot of people, because I'll give you an example of this. I've seen this obviously over the years of teaching and even in the beginning when I was doing donation only classes and people would show up and people would hear, I talk, maybe do meditation, breath work, Course in Miracles talks, and people would come and be like, oh my gosh, I feel like this has like changed my life. And then they disappear for like months and they come back and they look like they got ran over by a truck, by life. And, it's like, wow, we can have these these realizations. Almost everyone in their lifetime at some point has had these revelation type moments or miraculous moments where we're connected to something bigger than ourselves. And let's just say the light. I mean, we are the light, and everyone at some point has gotten some glimpses of it. And yet how often people go to the dark, into war, into conflict. And it's really been happening for thousands of years in different ways. And this idea, the Course says, what is it that it's like, what is this grain of sand that we want to keep between our brothers and sisters and ourselves? Like they're out there, the world out there, this power versus that power, it's all the game of the ego. And that's why the Course calls this is the detour to fear, because everyone that comes here comes to play with illusions of separation. Because think about, in all human experience, everybody has this feeling of being impotent at some point and feeling like their power has been lost and they have to go and search for it. It seems like that's almost the entire, not the entire, but it infiltrates every human experience. Every human being has that as part of their journey in some way, because the very idea of taking on a body in a world that is built on duality and perception automatically makes it like there's a force out there that's pitted against me that I'm trying to defend against, which just projected outward becomes the world of attack and the world of war and the world of conflict. And that's the difficulties that people don't realize, is that it's the forgiveness of others and the healing and putting down the sword and the shield is not just for, it's not like I'm doing this to, the way we were taught, like a shabby form of pardon, like I'm better than you, but I'll give you a shabby form of pardon because you wronged me. Not like that. It's like, wow, we're both made up of the divine. And if I attack you in my thoughts, even, I end up attacking myself. And that's why forgiveness is so powerful, because it frees us. It frees us, because condemnation of others, or in the physical expression, would be the war, right? But the war within ourselves, the war in our thoughts, the condemnation against people and situations and events that we have in our minds keeps us prisoner. And that's why there's a part in our mind, the ego, that doesn't want peace. And the difficulties, we've just been listening to it for so long, and you can just see it play out all around the world. Everyone comes here listening to it until the suffering, it seems like, this doesn't necessarily have to be every case, but for the majority, until the people suffer enough that they just start to seek out, healing and peace. You could say on maybe the highest level, like a Nelson Mandela in prison for 28 years and coming out talking about forgiveness, or, there's people all around the world that have practiced this. That I think it's important for us to realize is that there really is no world out there. The world is a projection of our thoughts. So the place to heal the war is within our own heart and within our own mind. And the understanding that this ego is a thief, that's why the first obstacle to peace is that when we have peace, we want to get rid of it. We have to always be watching out for that part of our mind that wants to throw away peace. And because as we do that, it makes the ego stronger. We give allegiance to the ego. And you basically have a world of people running around giving allegiance over to the ego and their own thoughts. Hence, the world we see and the conflicts that we see and the greed and the war that has been going on since for as long as we know. And it's up to us that's why the sole responsibility of the miracle workers to accept the healing and the awakening for themselves, because we have to face our own war within ourselves. And that's the true meaning of forgiveness and healing, ultimately, where we step into our role as the light. And every single one of us has that ability.